Hello again, everyone. I thought I'd take a few minutes today to discuss using FasTrack on a permanent layout. FasTrack is real popular for temporary layouts and the carpeting on the floor, Christmas time, that sort of thing. And I thought I'd just bring up some ideas that I did when I built my layout for something more permanent. First off, the FasTrack, you may or may not know, already has extra terminals into the design of the track where you can add extra power feeders down the line of your layout as the layout grows, which is really slick. A lot of guys like to stick with the smaller terminals that come with the sets and sort of thing like that, and you can buy these slip-on connectors and run the smaller wiring. But I prefer a larger wiring. You can see the difference. I upgraded my layout. Here's the factory wiring, the 18 gauge, and then I went with the larger wiring, the 14 gauge wiring. And what I ended up doing is I just soldered the wire directly to these terminals. I wanted to have an example of this, but unfortunately, I don't have any solder left from when I built the layout, and I don't do a whole lot of soldering. So there we are. The occasional smoke unit fan motor I might do down the road, but without any real solder, I was unable to make an example of this. The next thing I'd like to talk about is if you do that, or if you don't do that, whichever, I also found something else that was useful. And they have these, some call them suitcase connectors. Some people call them, I think the box that these came in are called tab splices. But these are real slick, and I liked them because I changed my layout once I had the main loop in, and then when I wanted to add extra track later on and extra power feeders, with these it's just a matter of slipping these over your main wire and then cutting your feeder wire and then slipping that in here. Then you take pliers, squeeze down the connector, and then put the cover on, and then you have instant feeder wire to your next block, siding, whatever. And some folks said that they've had bad luck with these, and I'm not here to discount any of that, but I don't know what the variables are or if it's quality of the connector, size, wire size, but I've had nothing but good luck with these. I have nothing but good things to say about these. And like I said, they're real slick when you want to add something in after everything's all established. You don't want to be pulling up track or whatever. Not to mention, they're a lot neater under the layout because this connection right here, you'd be looking at 3 bare wires and at least 1 or 2 wire nuts. And to me, I'm not a big fan of wire nuts. While they do the job real well, they make an ugly connection. I still have a lot of wire nuts on my layout for accessories and stuff like that. But wherever I could streamline the operation, I try to do it. And these suitcase connectors, tap splices, you just have to make sure you get the right size wiring. You know, they're sized 14 to 16 gauge up and lower. And you just have to make sure you have the correct ones. But I was real happy with the way that those worked out. The next thing I'd like to discuss is before I get too far ahead, and for soldering these wires, all I use is a very basic Weller 25-watt iron. Um, Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, and it worked real well. It doesn't take rocket scientist soldering skills to make these connections. You put a little heat on it, put the solder on it, and connect your wire. And once these wires were soldered onto my track, I mean, you could darn near rip the power tab off with the wire still attached. I mean, it's a good connection. Next thing I'd like to get into is scenery part of my track. Let me move this out of the way. And a lot of people comment on my track, the way that it looks. All I did use was the Woodland Scenics TT 4580 steel rail pin. That's all that I used. This one's dry, it doesn't have any color on it. And you try to carefully push down and drag it across the track. And the main thing is, it's probably hard to see on this video, but if you look really closely, this very edge, the plastic base has some pretend spike heads sticking up. It's key to make sure that you get some color on this plastic edge where it goes along the rail and between the ties, and that really changes the U-shaped look of the rail to something that looks a little bit more realistic. Because this plastic edge, while it holds the rail in place, it also does an okay job of making the rail look like it's flared out like an actual rail, like your other brands of track, Atlas and Gargraves and all them that have a better looking rail profile. And to me, that one, once that was painted, that made a world of difference on my track. I mean, it you can know it separates. This kind of blends in, and then all of a sudden, it looks a lot more like actual rail. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is the ballast that I used. And I try to get something that was close to the roadbed. So nothing special here. Woodland Scenic's coarse ballast. I thought coarse looks better for the O gauge. And what I did was I would run a bead of full strength glue along the roadbed. Here, I'll get my piece back over here. I'd run a bead along the roadbed, along the top, for a distance, not too far, and it starts to run down. And then what I would do is take a larger paintbrush, something cheap. This is a little nicer brush, maybe a little bit bigger, and then try and spread it across there. And then when I put the ballast on, I normally would use a teaspoon. That's my tool of choice. I don't have my teaspoon here right now, but I would shake that and I would hold the side of the teaspoon along the track and then tap the handle and then let the ballast fall. And then once you get that base stuck on there, then you can come back later and use a 50-50 water and alcohol mix, or you could 50% rubbing alcohol and soak that all down. And then you go over it again with water and glue mix. And I'm using these glue containers because I found that these Elmer's glue containers, these squirt tops, are absolutely fantastic for applying both the water mix and the glue mix. I mean, the sprayer for me is pretty much worthless. These things here, and they come with every bottle of glue. I thought they worked fantastic. That was kind of like a nice surprise mistake kind of a thing. I think that pretty much covers all I wanted to say. Oh, and the other thing I've also seen, and again, I certainly don't have all the best ideas. I just have ideas. But one more thing I've noticed, and what I tried to do when this layout was made is, if possible, when your layout is finished or semi-finished, I try to go to the edge of the layout somewhere and get down at eye level and sight down the track. If you sight down the track, then you can see any dips or highs and lows as you go. And this area here with these turnouts was rather critical for me because I have adjoining sections of the bench work. And ultimately, what I did, I used number 4 screws to secure the track. And ultimately, what I did is I shimmed or raised or tightened. If you snug these down just a little bit and not crazy, I normally would snug them down, push on the roadbed until there was no movement and stop there. But I shimmed out all the dips in the track as much as I possibly could. And this makes a big difference. I see a lot of layouts where you can see big gaps in the rails and you see things are uneven. And while these trains will run on some pretty rough track, long term, you're going to be in for smoother operation if you can keep your track work nice and smooth. I mean, that's the way it's all about. The wiring and the track are the two most important things of your layout. And then not far behind is your transformer. And I also have a voltmeter. This is also inexpensive. Gardner Bender voltmeter, digital voltmeter. I don't have any power going to the track, but this is important. Once you get your layout on, find any bad areas, any dead areas. This is really important. And then all of a sudden, you'll find out you use it more. I mean, I thought went from, I really don't need that to I use it for everything. I set all my accessory voltage and everything. And it's really nice. It's a nice tool just to see what's going on in your layout. And I think that's pretty much covered it. There's something else I wanted to discuss and I can't quite recall. So we'll end this session for now, and I hope I was able to help some folks out and hopefully make some more videos of trains running in the future. Thanks.